Hey friend, I'm Leah Simon. I'm the founder of the Box Co and the creator of the Comeback Box. And I built the box so that we could all live outside the box. And while we might be really excited to travel, we might have some concerns. And so I wanted to bring on a good friend, Dr. Kristin Hughes. She is a physician and a travel health strategist. She is a member of the International Society of Travel Medicine, and she is a consultant and concierge to people like TV personalities, Olympians, and entrepreneurs. So it's a really amazing opportunity to have her here and ask her any and all your questions about this new world of travel that we're living in. Hi, and Kristen has joined. Let me bring her up. Just waiting. And if you have any questions, you can just go into the little, hi,
Hi,
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Just turning you up a little bit. Um, Everybody, I was just saying, if you have any questions, you can just go on the little question icon and it will send it straight to Kristen. How are you doing today?
I'm so good. It's a beautiful day, and I feel like, as summer approaches, there's like new hope in the air, and I feel like that's how I am and everyone else is kind of feeling about travel and
Yeah.
everything that's happening in the world right now.
Yeah, a lot of hope. And I think, potentially some concerns and questions about how we move forward. So I'm super excited to have such an expert here today.
Yes,
Um,
thank you for having me. I'm so pumped to hang out.
how's the weather where you are? It looks beautiful.
It's great. It's like 75 and sunny. So I'm normally based in Chicago, but right now I'm in Michigan. We have a
Oh.
vacation house here, and so summer comes a little bit later in the northern parts.
Yeah, I lived in Chicago for maybe 5 years.
Oh, you did? I had no
Mhm.
idea.
Yeah, I was close to Bucktown, Logan Square.
Oh yeah, awesome, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we live right downtown, like 4 blocks from Michigan Avenue, so
Oh, perfect.
where all the action is.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing city, and it's a long winter.
It is. It's true. We lived in New York City before moving to Chicago, and I still feel like it's a little bit longer in Chicago for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I lived in New York as well. We will have to try swap all these stories.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And you've lived, I read, on 5 continents. So it sounds like you like to travel and you like to move.
Yes. So I feel like, when I was younger, we used to go to Mexico as a family. And then, as I turned 18 and I went to Africa for the first time. And then I just basically said yes to everything that came across my way. And yes, I have spent a couple of years living in the Caribbean. I've lived in South America. I've lived in Europe. I lived in Australia. Spent time in Southeast Asia.
Wow.
So, and I've done a lot of work. I've done that through my training and also like through working abroad in like medical mission sort of settings, but global healthcare settings. And so I feel like all of those things have given me a very unique perspective. So.
Amazing. Yeah. I read, you're a board certified physician. And before meeting you, I had never really heard of a specialized travel health consultant. So I'd love to hear, what that is, and then also just why you chose to go in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am board certified in emergency medicine. And, I've run an emergency department and I did all my training in New York City and always had a strong interest in global health. And basically, along my own travels, working in Uganda and South Africa and Haiti, and, you know, I come to understand that the majority of travelers that, pre-COVID, 9 million outbound American travelers a year are really wildly unprepared for what actually exists out there. Like, people don't think about, you know, different diseases abroad, et cetera. So needless to say, a couple of my own experiences. My husband got sick in India. I had a 1-year-old that was like spiking fevers in Scandinavia. A good friend I was traveling with contracted malaria. Other friends, I've, been speaking to someone in an Italian emergency department who passed out and had head trauma. And so kind of dealing with all that sort of stuff, I felt like there really wasn't someone out there that was, preparing, educating individuals for these, different types of settings, whether it be, international, whether it be in cities or, more remote locales. And
Mm-hmm.
so I basically kind of developed my own people who are going out there and living their life and crossing borders in the meantime. And so I have my own consulting service, and I work with people. I've developed a high performance health framework that allows I help people build immunity before they go, and increase energy and all of these sorts of things, because as being a busy doctor and traveling all over, I certainly didn't pay attention to my health as much as I should have. And everyone is exposed to different environments, and toxins and lots of different things with the crazy travel sort of jet set lifestyle.
Okay, amazing. I lost you for just a minute. I had some connection issues on my end. I'm not sure. Did everyone else get all that? If you can just comment below and let me know. Did you lose me, Kristen?
I saw it's sort of like, you know, recharging your screen for a moment. I'm not
Okay.
sure in which part of my spiel I might have lost you.
Sorry. Okay, they say they got it all. So that's great.
Okay.
Um, Before I was just thinking, I think the work that you're doing is so important because I've read that while 50% of Americans might have a passport, only 2% have actually used them. And I feel that if people were more educated and knew more about, okay, what the potential risks are and have power in them because they have the knowledge of what to do, it would encourage more people to travel, especially internationally.
Right. Yes. I mean, I certainly feel like this past year and the COVID pandemic has brought to the forefront the importance of travel health and how we're all interconnected, and what our decisions are impacts people in different communities in different parts of the world. And so I'm really excited. I think that people are more aware of that, and I'm excited for everyone to kind of step up and become better global citizens.
Yeah. I am as well. I'm a big fan of travel. I too have moved a lot and usually go on a few international trips a year. So this past year I have not, and I can't wait to get back out there. So first, I think where I'd love to start is for someone who has traveled before, pre-COVID, what's different now? What do we need to know now? And I'll take this from the stance of someone who is fully vaccinated. Okay, so
Sure.
you've got both vaccines. What do we need to do differently when we travel now?
So before we jump straight into all the juicy stuff, I just
Oh,
wanted to say, like, I love what you're doing with the box co, and I think it's just such a cool idea. I mean, personal growth is so important, and I feel like, why I love travel so much, a certain aspect of it is the personal growth that it provides you, while you're having different experiences and challenging yourself. And so I'm just curious to know, like, were there any of your travels that inspired part of your, what you're doing right now, and any days, in particular, or has anyone even done it while they've been traveling?
So some people have, and thanks so much for asking. I love that you love the idea and the concept. Some people do it when they go on a weekend trip. I haven't had many people who have taken big international travels with it, but going and renting a cabin, it sort of can become your own personal self-care retreat. While you may have gone to a spa or something like that before, now you can either do it in your home or you can rent a cabin in Big Bear and go through the box there. And it's built as a 28-day experience, but it can really be done however you want to do it. You know, some people do it as like self-care Sundays, and then some people take it on a weekend away. I'm sure that that's a great question of whether any of my travels inspired it. You know, I built it based on a lot of personal and professional research. I was a strategist for many years studying behavior. And I think that one of the reasons I was able to help brands with insights is because I traveled so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I understood different cultures and the commonalities between cultures, what makes us similar, and the nuances in different markets. So I definitely think that my perspective has been shifted greatly by travel. I lived in France, for the south of France, for a while. I'm originally from a small town in Kentucky. I lived in London. I went to school in DC, and we just talked about living in New York, Chicago, and now I'm in Los Angeles. So I'm a big advocate of traveling and experiencing different cultures and even living different places. Um, and I think at a young age, my parents are big travelers, even in their
I love that.
70s now. They
That's amazing.
constant, yeah, they take an at least one or two international trips every year. And one thing, just for anyone who may be watching or their parents, what they started loving to do is take these really nice smaller cruises in international locations. And I think something that's really smart is they only have to unpack once. They
Mm-hmm.
unpack on the boat and then they get to see all these different countries. And I think, for seniors, that's such a great way to travel.
That's
Um,
brilliant.
and I just wanted to share that. But yeah, so thanks so much for asking about the
Sure, my
box.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So diving back in,
Yeah.
back to your question, just like from the standpoint of a vaccinated individual, like what do we need to do differently now? I mean, basically, um, there are so many new rules and regulations, and they vary widely. That are, dependent on different countries or, what the governments have decided. So, I mean, first and foremost, you need to make sure that you're healthy, before you go. I always recommend to my clients that you have like a regular checkup, with your doctor, and you follow all the preventative cancer screening guidelines and all of those sorts of things. But making sure you're healthiest before you go. And then, you never know who you're going to encounter. I mean, there are certainly lots of people that have different viewpoints about the COVID pandemic and come from different perspectives and different education levels and all these sorts of things. And so you just really have to look out for yourself as number one, make sure you are taking care of yourself, taking all the necessary precautions, and also, just have some grace for people that might have a different viewpoint than yours. But I think that certainly today, and travel today requires a lot more research before you go.
Okay, so let's just take that, from the start. So for instance, if we're interested in going to a particular country, what's the first step? Is it looking at what their regulations are? Is there a great website we should be looking at to see what their COVID rates are? And does that even matter if we have both of our vaccines?
Sure. I mean, the vaccine isn't, 100%. And so it does matter. Um, as much as we'd all like to think that we're 100% invincible, and have that, badge, it's not 100%. So you still have to be careful. And so what I like to think about and advise my clients to do is let's think about worst case scenario. So
Okay.
backing up, what I would do is, I would, first of all, let's think about what we all kind of need right now. Like, take your time, plan your trip, go somewhere relaxing. It doesn't have to be like a crazy action-packed, vacation right now. And if you're planning on traveling with kids, that adds a different element, whether they're old enough to be vaccinated or if they're not vaccinated. So, I mean, I think a lot of people who have kids have spent a ton of time with them this year. So take your trip, go somewhere without them. You have my permission.
Yeah.
And so somewhere that's great to start is if you're an American traveling abroad, is the CDC website. They have specific country profiles, and also the state.gov website. And that also highlights safety issues, et cetera. One good thing that the US State Department has is you can enroll in their STEP program, which basically notifies the US government, like if you're traveling internationally and where you might be. And so those are good places to start initially to kind of get research. And then I would just visit Google and, spend some time looking at the COVID rates at the destination you're going to,
Right.
as well as the specific regulations, like whether it's an EU country and you need, a digital green sort of certificate, or, I mean, these things can be searched. It just takes
Right.
a little bit more digging deep, unless you want to work with someone that actually, does that. So,
Someone like you.
yeah, someone like
Okay.
me.
Amazing.
Exactly.
So that's where you would begin with your clients, kind of helping them do the research and strategically plan where they want to go. Is that right?
Yeah. So basically, I mean, with my clients, I sort of start with a full health history. We look at everything, and I help them plan for pitfalls, as well as take their personal preferences into account. But there are other things you need to know, like what time of the year is the best to go in your destination. Like, you don't want to run into tsunamis or the rainy season or hurricane season, or, I mean, there's just a number of things that could happen. And I love travel, and I want everyone to do it as much as possible, and that's my job to help. But I also, from an ER doctor standpoint, I know the pitfalls, I know what can happen, and so I kind of take that off of my clients and plan for them, so they don't have to worry as much.
And, for everybody tuning in, I am doing this series to try and make these experts and their knowledge really accessible, approachable, and affordable to you. And Kristen, or Dr. Hughes, I don't want to be too informal,
Either is
has
fine.
generously offered to give everyone a complimentary initial consultation. So, Kristen, what is the way that people would schedule that with you, or what's the best way to reach out to you for that?
Yeah, so basically, you can go to my website, kristinhughes.com, and there's an apply section, and you just fill out that information. I'll get back with you, or you can go ahead and schedule, a call from there. And so, I'd love to, help anyone that's excited to get back out there.
Amazing. Thank you. That is so generous, and I really appreciate it. And I will be going on and booking a call. I've never had a travel health consultant, but I definitely feel like I need one. I mean, that would bring me a lot more peace of mind. Um, so, okay, so initially, you talked about the COVID rates and looking
Mhm.
at where you're going.
Yep.
Is there a benchmark that you'd recommend?
I mean, basically, if right now, I mean, I'm advising that people kind of still avoid cities and go, go for a more rural destination.
Right.
But with that being said, you need to think about like what happens if you are away and you get COVID. Like, what happens then? Or what happens if you're away and someone at home that you care about gets COVID? Like, what happens then? Or you book all of this expensive travel and then the regulations suddenly change. Like the EU this week basically said that vaccinated Americans are able to travel to the EU without quarantining, but each country has a break on that, which means if something changes and they have a protocol that allows them to stop travelers from entering immediately. So if that happens, this might be one of those times where you want to think more about getting, the travel, reimbursement insurance. So just some thoughts. But in terms of the exact rates, you just want to notice. I mean, it's very obvious in the news. Like right now, you shouldn't be traveling to India. It's not a good idea. My heart goes out to everyone that has family over there, and certainly the U.S. has been a hotbed at one point, and everyone was advising not to travel to the United States. And so, really, you just need to make sure that precautions, regulations are in place, and that the COVID rates aren't skyrocketing.
Yeah. And I love your advice about exploring more rural destinations. I feel like this past year has really been a return to nature, and I'm not mad about it. I think it's amazing that we've all started exploring national parks. You saw a lot of people buying RVs and starting that sort of van life, and I think it's great. So that's a wonderful suggestion. Something else that I was hearing as you were talking is maybe this is the time to do a one destination trip rather than going somewhere and hitting 5 cities or 5 countries. That sounds like it would be really complex right now. It sounds like this is the time for one destination, unpacking once. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, if you've been dreaming about, some place that's a little bit more expensive and, on your bucket list, I mean, I would really splurge towards that right now. That's like, maybe higher level, stay in the nicer hotels. I mean, if it's ever a time to splurge on first class, now is the time. And
Okay.
so,
Can you talk? Is first class safer somehow?
well, I mean, typically on the planes, the air circulation is very good. But when you think about first class and coach, there's just a number of people, there's a less amount of people, you have more space. And, oftentimes like rules are a little bit followed more stringently. And so, I mean, I just think we all haven't been traveling this last year as much as we normally do. And so it's just like, if you're gonna take time and splurge on first class and like make it comfortable, make sure you feel comfortable, do all of those things right now to ease back in.
So that's great. So talking about budgeting a little bit, it does sound like fewer locations, like pick one spot, but perhaps pick a good one. And what I'm hearing is spend a little bit more on the air travel potentially and spend a little bit more on the destination, on the hotel or where you're staying.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've backpacked across Europe, and I've done it all cheaply before. But right now is maybe, that you can still, I mean, there are still deals, and the airline tickets are a little bit less, and certainly you can go on the budget if you want. But if you're going to do that, yeah, just pick one place, rent one place, stay in one place, and just enjoy it for what it is. I mean, I think there's huge trends in travel right now being like, more wellness focused, also being more isolated and in nature, like you said. And also there's so much within the United States, so many great parks, and we have such a vast array of things to do here. There's always good options if you feel more comfortable with staying domestic.
So here's a question. My mom and sisters are actually dreaming about a summer trip. They want to go through Maine, right? And they want to stop in several different little towns through Maine. So as you're talking, and I don't know if this is just a recommendation for international, but domestically, do you think that that it's the same rule applies, where we shouldn't be going to like multiple towns or multiple cities in the United States in one trip?
I mean, obviously, if you're taking a road trip, you're going to have to pass through certain locations and stop. But, I would err more on the side of caution. I mean, if you're taking the proper precautions and you're vaccinated and all those sorts of things, I'm sure if you're, doing it well, it can be done. But like, if you want to just like rent a place on the beach and enjoy the beach, and like if you stay in one spot instead of switching to multiple hotels, you could always take a day trip somewhere, for example. So there's lots of ways to do it.
Okay, great. So on road trips, any specific tips that you have for those?
So just like international travel in different states, the COVID rates are different. So I would just look into those and sort of avoid, the urban jungles, and go for, more of a remote experience. Also, the other thing I want to point out, no matter where you're traveling, I mean, you should have a good idea of like the healthcare facilities in the destination that you're going to, because there is a huge range of capabilities that certain places have. And I'm speaking about going more rural, but sometimes rural means you're further from, a cath lab in case there was like a cardiac issue or certain things like that. So I would just make sure that you're aware. And also, I've worked in places where, they didn't have ventilators. So if you had respiratory failure and needed to be intubated, it wasn't a possibility. Or, things that are days away. I don't know if you saw the thing that happened with Ashley Judd recently. She was like hiking in Africa and suffered a horrible leg injury and had to be like flown to South Africa, and it was a huge ordeal. She was carried out of the remote jungle by some very kind people. But it's just an example of thinking about when you're far away, you need to think about what actually is available from a healthcare standpoint.
Okay, so just want to make sure, what exactly are we looking for? Like, we need, what would you say, like a hospital that has XYZ within how far of where we're staying?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that even smaller hospitals do have the ability to fly you out or medical evacuate you somewhere. So, I would just recommend that there's at least, some sort of a healthcare facility or hospital within the United States that is like within 30 minutes. And then, there's like a tertiary care facility that has higher capabilities, especially if you're older and have like a lot of, comorbidities or illnesses. You might want to consider, sticking closer to a facility that has, higher capabilities.
Okay. And those capabilities, that they have the ability to get you to another facility and that they have ventilators?
Well, I mean, the example that I gave was not in the United States. It was abroad, and so that's just something to think about. I don't want people going out there and thinking like they have similar expectations to exactly what you have at home. And so it's just something to be educated about. And then some hospitals in the United States, they don't have certain like neurosurgical capabilities should you sustain head trauma, or, sometimes they don't have, capabilities to go in and open up an artery if there's a vessel that's clogged in your heart and you're having a heart attack.
Yeah,
Certain things like that. So, I mean, obviously, if there's anything that goes wrong, usually you go to the nearest facility and they kind of, will triage it from there.
got it. And Madison asks, hi Madison, about road trip travel essentials. So do you have a certain packing list that you recommend taking with you?
Yeah, so I would recommend really just focusing on planning out your itinerary, and knowing where you're going, knowing where you're stopping, taking precautions. Obviously wearing a mask and those sorts of things when you're stopping for gas to refuel. And then I think something that's really important is just what are you going to eat? Like let's think about like the nutritious things that you can bring along with you, on your trip, as opposed to like stopping at the nearest fast food place, etc. And so I think that right now, just having a very well-defined itinerary, knowing kind of where you're stopping, knowing where you're sleeping, feeling comfortable. If you're going to stop at a hotel, feel free to call them ahead of time to make sure that you understand what their protocols are in terms of cleaning and sanitizing. And so those are just things to keep in mind. Also, it's important to have, you know, should something break down or whatever, like think ahead, or should something happen, it's, always remember to bring your medications. I always recommend having a first aid kit in the car. And things like that should, an accident arise. If you're going, backwoods camping, you just need to, again, think more ahead of everything that you might need. Totally
I mean,
doable.
yes, great that, great reminder about bringing your normal medications. Any specific medications that you'd recommend for treating COVID, while you're on the road until you can get to a facility?
I mean, what I would recommend, and just all of this, I'm giving a disclaimer. This is not, I wouldn't take this as full medical advice. You should always consult with your healthcare provider, etc. But one of the things that I think is really helpful, and that I bring along, it's very cheap. And one of the things that we worried most with COVID-19, and when I treated patients when I'm treating patients in the emergency department, is their oxygen level. And so a simple thing to do is just to buy a pulse oximeter off of Amazon or anything, and you can tuck that in and take that with you. And, even if you're not feeling, well, I mean, you can take over the counter, like, Tylenol if you have a fever and sort of symptomatic relief. But the most important thing is to just kind of know and get tested if you are having symptoms, and,
Sure.
keep away from, other individuals if that is the case. And so, but the pulse ox is awesome. It's so
Okay.
simple. You put it on your finger, you turn it on, you put it on your finger, and it shows you what your oxygen level is. And basically we don't really start to become worried unless it's like, below 92%, definitely below 90%. But if it's in the
Okay.
high 90s, I wouldn't. It's just one of those things that gives you an extra level of, okay, I'm good.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think peace of mind is a big part of it, especially if you're on the road and you've got to get somewhere. Um, Another thing I wanted to ask about road trips, do you have a recommendation between hotels and Airbnbs? I've kind of gone back and forth because I feel like an Airbnb, you've only had one family stay there, then it's been cleaned, then you're going in, whereas a hotel, you're interacting with a lot more people. But I don't know if I'm making this up in my head. Hotels, I feel like, have this very strict protocol where an Airbnb, it's sort of host by host and how they're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's your level of comfort, whatever you're
Mhm.
most comfortable with. I mean, I've certainly stayed in Airbnbs during the past year, and I felt very comfortable with it. And hotels, they also give you like information. I mean, the biggest risk with hotels is just increased exposure to more individuals, perhaps.
Yeah.
But I mean, that being said, I mean, you can certainly go up to your room and leave your room without, really become that being within that close contact with other people.
Right.
If they're having like a huge party in the lobby, I would like certainly not go there with your mask off and hang
Sure.
out like for now. But I think that certainly you can take precautions. The other thing that is a benefit of having a big hotel is that should something happen, a lot of the nicer hotels do have like services where they can contact a doctor for you or help you get care. And when you're kind of like on Airbnb, it's a little bit harder to maybe get in touch with someone, I would say.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, great.
but I
Um,
think both can be done safely.
okay, amazing. That makes me feel better.
Good.
Um, so another thing I wanted to chat with you about is congratulations on your new daughter.
Thank
Kristen
you.
is a new mom. How old is she now?
She is a little bit over 2 months. So,
Wow.
yeah.
And I'm so glad you said she's a good sleeper, so you're getting to sleep.
Yes, thankfully she is a good sleeper. So my daughter's name is Noah. She's our second daughter. Our first daughter's name is Heidi, and she's 3. And so they've certainly kept me busy, but it's been nice. However, I feel like I'm so itching to get out there right now, and it's a little bit hard with a 2-month-old.
Yes. And I heard you talking about like parents having their adult trip and alone time.
Could you
Um,
tell that I need one?
I heard it a little bit. But I mean, come on, everybody needs that. Do you have family close by or somebody that could watch the girls while you're away?
Yes, we do. Both of our parents are super involved, and so they're always to help out, always able to help out in whatever way, and so we're really grateful for that. So, but
Amazing.
we've already planned, a big trip for us to go away in the next
Oh,
year, and we're looking forward to it. Also, my husband has a big birthday coming up this fall, so
oh, nice.
I'm secretly wanting to plan something that's, I want to do, but also trying to be cool and like wanting, since it's his birthday, like I guess
Right.
he can have some say.
Well, if you need a girls' trip and a reason to come out to Los Angeles or California, I'm here. You're welcome anytime.
Awesome.
Um,
Would love that.
and I brought this up because they're precious and I love seeing your journey. Also, a lot of things boomed in CV19. Unfortunately, there were a lot of CV19 divorces. And then if there were also a lot of babies being made. So we've got a lot of expecting moms, a lot of new moms, and just wanted to chat with you about if you had any specific tips for an expecting mom or a new mom.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, if someone's expecting, I mean, the baby moon is a big thing. We like almost didn't really take one, and then, someone my husband works with was like, you have to go. It's like your last hurrah. And so, I think that you can certainly go but I would just be careful, to follow your OB's recommendations. If for some reason you have a high risk pregnancy or it's not going smoothly, that would be a reason maybe to skip it. And definitely travel between weeks 14 and 27 are like the most recommended. If you're after 36 weeks, you really shouldn't be traveling.
Okay.
You don't want to be caught on a plane giving birth. Not a good situation. So.
But a
Did
great
you hear about
movie.
the case that happened on the way to Hawaii recently?
No.
Yeah, there was a passenger who didn't actually know she was pregnant and delivered a baby, and luckily there were like 3 neonatal nurses there, and like I think a physician was on board as well. So it happens. I mean, I definitely, as a doctor, it's funny, but traveling as a doctor on a plane, you're sort of like, you look around and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel a little bit responsible, like for everyone on this plane. in case something happens. And one day or one flight, I was actually on my way to Europe, and there were 3 different sick passengers that I took care of. And I also remember this on a different flight. Another funny story was just, there was a doctor already taking care of the person, and they're like, oh, what's your specialty? And I'm like, emergency medicine. And they're like, oh, I'm an anesthesiologist. I'm sitting down. Good luck. I'm like, hey, how about some help here? So anyways, I feel like we went in a big circle there. But Madison just asked where I booked my trip with my husband, and we're going to go to Argentina. So really excited.
When are you doing that?
I think we actually booked it pretty far in advance. So February of next year. And then we'll probably be looking to go somewhere, I think probably somewhere warm in October. And then I'm going to probably go to Colorado in September to run a race. But there's just, I would certainly feel very comfortable traveling right now myself. It's just I kind of want to leave my kids at home for sure.
Do it.
Yeah.
I will support you in that decision.
Yeah. Also, another thing with the expectant moms, if you're traveling, book an aisle seat. If you want to be getting up and going to the bathroom and you're very pregnant, you don't want to be like hopping over passengers to get there. And so just another word of caution. And they also on the plane, you can ask for a seatbelt extender. And so just be aware that if you need it, you can certainly do that.
Great.
Yeah.
And I know, that you have a lot of amazing tips just in general for flying. I've heard you talk about different stretches, being hydrated. But if you have your top 3 tips for us to do while we're flying, I'd love to hear about those.
Sure. I mean, I think the top tip you already mentioned was drink lots of water. Right. Don't skip the carbonated water, because certainly when you're on the plane, there can be bloating due to cabin pressure changes, et cetera, and the gas that you have within your own body naturally. And so I would skip the carbonated beverages and just drink lots of water, stay hydrated. You can bring your own water bottle on with you and just fill it up in the airport. So that's huge. And then I think I get asked a lot, and I help my clients a lot with the jet lag. And I feel that really it's important to sort of start before you get on the plane in terms of trying to acclimatize to the new time zone. So the week before, I would sort of set your world clock on your iPhone or, on your watch, whatever, to the time zone that you're going to be going to. And first of all, it's important to get regular 7 to 9 hours of sleep on a regular basis so that you're you have a lot of sleep in that bank and save it up. And then, you would basically alter your bedtime an hour, 30 minutes to an hour every night closer to the time zone that you're going to be traveling to. And so that eases you in. And then, obviously when you're on the plane, you have your new time zone the second you get on, and depending on where you're going and, what time of day it is, either, just stay up, force yourself to stay up, or otherwise, just take a quick nap right when you get on there. And if it's nighttime in your destination, you should certainly try and sleep.
Okay. That's great. And I know a lot of people will take even herbal kind of sleeping aids on the plane. And I wonder what you thought about that. I think part of it is it's knocking you out on the plane, but a lot of those supplements or medications have a lot of lingering effects. And so I didn't know if you thought it was better to try and do it naturally or with the supplements.
Sure. I mean, I think natural is always best if you can do it. If not, then melatonin is a good thing to try. and 1 milligram is actually as effective as 5 milligrams. And so you just need to make sure you don't want to like sleep so much, that when you get there, then you're like, it's nighttime. But what I do always recommend is that if you can plan to arrive at your destination in the evening, then that gives you, time to sleep and get rested, get an exercise in, go outside when you get there, and that will also help reset your circadian rhythm. The natural light outside does a great job of doing that. So I always advise my clients to basically plan to arrive at night, go for a run or a walk outside, and then sort of wind down, and you have some time to catch up and like get prepared for your meeting or event the next day.
Okay, wonderful. So arrive at night with enough time to do a little exercise, not too late at night, not like straight to bed. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Sure.
Any other in-flight tips or when you arrive tips?
Sure. I think, magnesium powder is actually something that I really like for bloating, if you experience that. Also, there's a lot of people that do suffer from motion sickness. I think someone had asked a question ahead of time about that. And, what I would recommend is, it differs for everyone, but there's a couple of things that you can try. You can try and take anti-nausea medication before you get on the plane as like a prophylactic or something to prevent it. There's also Benadryl is over the counter, and it often has like some anti-motion sickness, things that help that's associated with that. And then also, if it's worse and none of that stuff works, you can always try a motion sickness, like a scopolamine patch or something like that. But those are all things that you should talk to your doctor about, what works for you.
Okay.
So.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to make sure, I want to be respectful of your time. We talked about road trips. We talked about in-flight. If anybody on here has a question, sort of last opportunities for questions, but you can go to that little icon and it'll send it to Kristen.
Yeah, or feel free to DM me after this if you're watching it live, or when it's, posted later. Feel free to DM me your questions.
Yeah, I'll save this here on my IGTV. It'll also be on my website, my YouTube, and I'll send everyone those links. Okay, Madison is asking your favorite sunscreen. I will say quickly, mine is Supergoop. I love everything they make, and it's really easy to order and get quickly. Kristen, what's your favorite?
Yes, Supergoop is great. Also, there's one called True Baby, and I actually use it on my kids, but I also use it on myself because it's very non-toxic, and that's something that's super important. I mean, the skin, everyone has to remember the skin is our largest organ, and everything that we put on it, makeup, sunscreen, etc., is can be absorbed and it can have toxins. So it's really important that you look at the labels and make sure that it's non-toxic. Also, if you can wear a hat, prevent that beautiful facial skin from getting wrinkles later on. I would probably go back and tell myself like 10 years ago to do it more, but
you look great. Come on. You look great. Well, okay, if there aren't any other questions, but I would love to talk about just ending on the health and emotional benefits of travel. I know you talk a lot about that, and I'd love for you to share that with everyone today.
Sure. I think that it's so important that we take care of ourselves, and we travel gives us an opportunity to jump out of our daily lives, and sometimes we gain perspective, like looking in from, being away, as to like things that we want to do better or things we want to change. I mean, like life can get hectic. Our relationships, our, work environment, our, we really have to take care of ourselves first. I feel like such a huge part of me is a traveler. And, when I get out there and I'm, rising to new challenges and learning new things and trying new foods, and like it brings me to like kind of my best self. And I remember you know, like all those things, I could just do whatever I wanted whenever I wanted, And so I think it's important to remind ourselves of that from time to time. Also, not every vacation has to be, you know, super crazy, jam packed that you need a
Sure.
vacation from the vacation. Take time to slow down. I think we've all learned to slow down a bit more this past year, and I think it's been healthy for us. My favorite vacations and my husband's favorite vacations are always when we're hiking or doing something in nature, because I think that sort of grounds us and recenters us. And also from a career standpoint, if you're traveling, while you're working, it gives you a chance to delegate tasks that you normally would take on yourselves to other people, to other employees, people that help you and are on your team. And I think that that's a huge lesson that we can all learn from. We don't always have to do all of it ourselves.
Yeah, I love all of that, especially when you start talking about travel and the impact on work and career. I feel like sometimes people struggle. They're so busy at work and they struggle to take time off to travel. And I want to share that, my personal experience is every time I travel, how beneficial it is for my work. Not that I'm working while I'm away, but creating that separation and boundary and letting my brain take a break from work.
Yeah.
I often get amazing ideas.
Sure. Creativity, boost creativity. That's huge.
I get clarity. If I'm stuck in work, that's often when I'm like, okay, I'm going to Joshua Tree. It's a 2-hour road trip, and I know that in the car, as soon as I leave and I shut down the computer and I leave it all, the answer will come to me. And so I just wanted to share that for anyone who may struggle themselves or with their spouse, to get their spouse to take some time off.
Also, solo travel is like a huge thing that like I think a lot of people are scared to take trips by themselves, but it is so awesome. Like it really is something that is, totally re-energizing.
And I think it could be more beneficial than ever because you have been, or we all have been in our house with our partner and our children, in very close quarters more than ever. And so taking a few days away just for yourself and to reconnect with yourself, I think could be really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And take the comeback box with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little self-care retreat.
I'm in. 100%.
Well, totally. Well, thank you so much, Kristen. I want to be respectful of your time. Was there anything that you wanted to share today that we didn't get to?
I just want everyone to go out there, live their lives. I know there's been a lot of fear this past year, and so I think just taking proper planning steps ahead of time, and really planning it out will give peace of mind when you're on the trip, so you have less worry. And that's really what I hope for everyone, to have like a fabulous, fabulous trip and vacation, because you know what? We all deserve it big time.
Yes, we do. Time to go out and play. Time to get out of the house.
Woohoo, for sure.
And yeah, I really appreciate everything that you're saying and sharing, not just on the call, but, follow Kristen's Instagram. She is providing so many tips and recommendations and so much knowledge all the time. I've learned a ton from her reels and her videos, and it sounds like the best place to follow up with you is on your website.
Yes, definitely.
And can you give that website address just one more time?
Sure. It's KristenHughes.com, and it's Kristin, Kristin, Hughes.
Okay, great.
And I just wanted to say thank you. This was so much fun.
Yeah, I had a great time.
Yes.
And come to California whenever you want, and we'll talk soon. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you chatting with me today.
Okay, sounds good.
And thanks to everyone for joining. I do these every Thursday. I'm bringing on a different guest to unbox their expertise for you. And I will post this all in my Instagram. So follow the Boxco story, and you can find all these in the live series unboxing. Okay. Thanks, Kristen. Have a great day. Bye.